Good evening, everybody. We are gathered here for a special session for the purposes of holding public hearings and introducing ordinances for the tax and budget for this coming fiscal year. In order to go into special session, I need to entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The first item of business is the Citizens Police Academy presentation of certificates. So at this time, I'm going to invite Officer Kendall up to introduce the graduates.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. This is the 10th session of the Hagerstown City Police Department Citizens Police Academy. We've had 18 great folks involved in the academy this year. We've done a lot of different things, and we're going to be getting some feedback from them later. All right, how about that?
They'll let us know if they can't hear us.
All right. Well, we've done a lot of different things with the academy. We had a great field day. We've partnered with Kaplan University, had the citizens using the firearms training simulator. They helped process a crime scene, actually learned about lifting fingerprints, had a great time with our gang officer and the SWAT team and the K-9 folks learning about those. Just all sorts of great things this year. Captain Kiefer has been great in helping keep it organized and on track. He's been invaluable in that case. He's around here somewhere. He's hanging over my shoulder. So if you'd like, we'll go ahead and get started and have the citizens come on up. So first will be Ashley Bader. We're going to do this one at a time, and then we're going to do a group photo. So Ashley, congratulations.
Where do you want them? Should they stay up here?
Go ahead up on the
Okay.
area.
Would you hop up here, sir, and you can help? All
Got a long
right.
way.
Cindy Eberhardt. Yes, they do. We have the Academy graduation certificate. Behind that is their graduation certificate for the community emergency response training that we did in conjunction with the county government. And then also there's a class photo behind that. All right, her husband, Jim Eberhardt. Let's try it this way. Thank you, Jim. Mohammed, and I'm going to try your name. I haven't been able to get it right all the time. Go to me.
I know it's hard, it's okay.
I keep trying. Thank you. And Soupy Gordon. I keep getting that, mispronouncing that one too. Anne Greenwood. She's kept everybody in stitches. And her daughter, Justine. Or sister, twin sister. Bonnie Harrell. Is Bonnie here? One of our partners, Kimberly Holtz. She helps the police department out on many things. I won't throw you under the bus, though. Alan Johnson. Katrina Newcomb. Congratulations. Sean Ross, is Sean here? I do not see Sean. Cheryl Johnson. Thank you, Cheryl. Lindsay Shawley. She just had to take a trip to Mexico while we're going on. It was just hard work for her. Rob Shawley, her other half. Thank you, sir. Earl Wintermore. Thank you, sir. And last but definitely not least, his lovely wife, Judy Wintermore.
Group photo?
Favorite part of the all of that?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know where she's gonna.
No, just kidding.
Okay, that was wrong. I think it's still gonna be tight.
It's better than standing on the table.
It is. Everyone squeeze in like you like each other. Okay, here on three. 1, 2, 3. And move back just a little bit. All right, again on 3. 1, 2, 3. Good, thank you all.
We are all going to head up to the 4th floor conference room, so we'll get in the elevator up to the 4th floor. So you get out, hard left, and that's the conference room.
You got the final exam?
That was a big class. Let her meet Kate, Ken.
That's nice.
Well, it's certainly an excellent program, and I give HPD all the kudos in the world, especially Officer Kendall. Thanks again to our acting chief, Captain Kiefer, for making sure that program runs continuously and continues to be successful. The next item of business are the public hearings for the FY 2016-17 tax rate and the FY 2016-17 budget. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to staff, and then we'll begin our public hearing.
Good evening. It's hard to believe another year has come and gone, but here we are in the middle of May. We're here this evening for our public hearing. The first will be on the real property tax rate for the city of Hagerstown for our fiscal year 17 budget. And I just wanted to take a moment to walk through, the city of Hagerstown published a notice in the Herald Mail, and it is a requirement and mandated by the state of Maryland. We utilize the language as provided by the state of Maryland, and we follow all of their guidelines. We published that notice 18 days ago. In fiscal year 17 proposed budget, the city of Hagerstown plans to maintain our current real property tax rate at 91.3 cents per $100 of assessed value, and our personal property tax rate at $2.283 per $100 of assessed value. The state of Maryland, on an annual basis, sends to the city a constant yield tax rate notice, and we received this memo in February. According to their new estimates for fiscal year 17, they anticipate that the city will see a slight increase in our assessable base market values. This increase from $2.506 billion to $2.515 billion on real property will amount to approximately $79,000 in revenue greater than our current year if our assessable base market values increase to that level. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and open the floor for public comments.
And we had two separate sign-up sheets, one for the tax rate and one for the budget. We did not have anyone sign up for the budget, but we'll go ahead and start with the tax rate. We did have one person sign up for the tax rate. I would like to remind folks that meetings are televised and recorded. Your comments will be on air, on tape, and on YouTube, and we give everybody 5 minutes to speak. So, Marcia Fuller, you're up on the list. If you don't mind, state your name and where you live for the record, please.
My name's Marcia Fuller, and I was incredulous when I saw that the city wanted to raise taxes again for the third year in a row. What? What do I do? I don't know technology.
We have someone coming to the rescue.
Okay, hey, how are you? It's on?
Marcia, if you can get a little closer to it,
Okay.
that'll help.
I think I have a little voice. Okay, I'm Marcia Fuller, and I was incredulous when I heard that the city wanted to raise taxes again for the third year in a row. And I think the city needs to learn to live within its means, just like the rest of us do. And if you don't have money, you don't spend it. That's all. Thank you.
I just want to clarify that we are not increasing the tax rate. The tax rate is remaining the same.
We would pay more.
No, you won't.
So that, the idea of the constant
No,
yield is that right now, the state is projecting that the assessable base will increase. And with the same tax rate, we will bring in $79,000 more in revenue, and that's projected. That's not anything that we have already in the bank. So it's a very small margin in terms of the scope and scale of our budget. So I just wanted to make those clarifying
That's correct,
points.
Mr. Mayor, we are not raising the rate.
The rate remains the same.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who did not sign up to speak about the tax rate who would like to do that at this time? Yes, sir. Please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Stephen Silas, 932 Oak Hill Avenue here in Hagerstown. Just for my own information, if the state has advised us of an increase in assessment generating this additional revenue, does that mean we're going to be reassessed sometime in that period of time?
Correct.
Not in this
Not
current
the-
period of
for
time. We
this.
will be reassessed at the end of 2017.
Which will not be effective until fiscal year 18,
18.
July 1 of 2017,
So
not
the
this year.
triennial reassessment occurs at the end of
Okay.
2016.
2016, I'm sorry, I did say 17. 2016, at the end of the
2016.
year, yes.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And that does not mean an increase, it just depends on your individual property and what happens with the assessment.
Which, by the way, is always appealable. And so, our finance director will always tell us that even though we get those initial projections of what our assessable base looks like, those are subject to appeal, and often those appeals are successful, and so we see a reduction then in the amount. So that's why
Yeah,
that
and-
margin is so slight.
And we should add, just so it's understood, there's been over the historical time period, a lot of fluctuations, including revenue drops, assessment drops. And in fact, talk about living within our budget, in 2011, 2012, we had a property tax revenue change of negative 11.4%. It was the largest tax decrease we've ever had. And it should be understood that you can have large decreases like that the city of Hagerstown has on homeowners, if you own your home, there is a 5% cap on how much your assessment, no matter what that assessment would go up, would be limited to 5% per year, no matter how great the economy goes. So you get that big drop that has no limit in it, and it takes a number of assessments, assuming they go up, to ever get back up to where we were. We're at the same combined city tax rate, city-county tax rate now that we were 10 years ago. The revenues are higher than 10 years ago. I don't mean to imply that they aren't, but the tax rate still remains there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Noggle. Please step forward and speak into the mic for everybody's benefit. State your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. I'm Robert Noggle, just impromptu. I want a clarification from Councilman Metz. So the decrease, the biggest decrease, you're talking about a property-related tax?
Yes, sir.
So, and are you referencing the fact that because there was an over-evaluation or the collapse of the real estate market nationwide produced a large difference between what the properties were actually worth and what they were evaluated? Is that the decrease you're referencing?
No, there were two causes in that. One was the absolute devaluation, the drop in the assessable base. We actually had a drop in the assessable base.
Based on the real estate market
Based
generally?
on the real estate market. That in combination with the county changing its methodology of collection of taxes, so that prior to that year, what happened, because of double taxation, in other words, we provide police and fire to our citizens, we shouldn't have to pay the county taxes to do that because the city does. So to a limited degree, we get reimbursed for that. Prior to that time, what they did is the county taxed all of our citizens, and they gave us approximately $9 million a year. And that represented about 11 to 12 cents on the tax rate. The county in their election year decided to be nice and, quote, nice and change things so that instead of taxing the citizens of Hagerstown that 11 cents and giving the city that money for their budget, they said, forget it. We're going to reduce the county tax rate by that amount, and every other municipality other than the city of Hagerstown raised their taxes to make up for that revenue shortfall. The city of Hagerstown did not do that, which caused that 11% or equivalent about a 12-cent tax decrease. But when we do that stuff, it's usually not noticed.
All right, thanks. So I'll go one more step here, and
Sure.
this is probably one more step than I should go. But Mayor Gosper, I sent you a sort of off the top of my head late night email in which I, voiced an idea that we might look at. The premise is that the government structures here are from the 19th century, and they work fairly well. I mean, I'm very happy with the council and the mayor. You always treat us right, and we get a chance to talk, and everything's pretty well known. No complaints. However, I do think that there's perhaps an issue of overlapping jurisdiction that might be looked at long-term to economize.
Sure.
We've been working on that for a long time, but thank you, you're absolutely correct.
To get it truly cured, it requires a change in state law, and I've worked 3 or 4 years to try to affect that, but
Yeah.
it's not, municipalities as a whole don't have enough influence to get that through the legislature.
Yeah, I was going to give Councilmember Brubaker a lot of credit for working through the Maryland Municipal League statewide with folks from around the state, municipalities who are dealing with this double taxation situation, which can always be addressed to a greater degree. So thank you. Is there anyone else who desires to speak on the tax rate? We will close that hearing, but leave the record open for 10 days, and we will open up the hearing on the FY 16-17 budget.
The fiscal year 17 proposed budget for the city of Hagerstown in total for all of our funds, excuse me, is a combined $128.6 million. Of this total, the general fund, or the fund that is funded primarily 67% with taxpayer, both real property and personal property tax. Total spend in that fund is $42.2 million of the $128 million. Our second largest fund is our electric fund at $25.4 million, and all of the expenditures there are covered by charges for services. And then just one other note that's separate from our general fund, $42.2 million. We do have general fund capital improvement projects funds, and it's at 13.5 million. That number sometimes is a little misleading. That is total spend for all of our projects, but I just want to remind people that the majority of those projects are funded with items like grants, bond proceeds, and the monies that we receive, those grants and bond proceeds are very restrictive and cannot be utilized for other purposes. So, again, in total for the proposed fiscal year 17 budget year, the city of Hagerstown total combined of all funds is $128,680,469. And I'd like to open if there's anybody who wishes at this point who didn't sign up.
The clerk has indicated to me that nobody signed up to speak for the hearing on the budget. Is there anyone in the audience who did not sign up to speak who desires to speak at the hearing? We will leave the record open for 10 days. We will have this on our agenda again at our regular session at the end of the month, so.
And could I just note, because one of the questions has been asked about living within our budget, and I appreciate that, Marcia. I would point out that one of the biggest issues we have is public safety. And just in our police budget, we have a 3.6% increase in our police budget over what we had last year, which is substantially higher, I believe, than our increase overall in the budget. So where that additional $70-some thousand is going, I would assert essentially is to public safety, which is what we've been requested to do, and in some cases criticized for not doing enough of. So it's that fine-tuned balance between not wanting to spend any more money and some of the things that are newer, for instance, police cameras, which have been recommended by everybody, and most importantly, our police and our insurance companies.
And those alone will be costing $56,000. So I do think our priorities are in the right place. I want to commend staff, Valerie especially, this being her first budget here with the city of Hagerstown. She's almost a year into this, and I think she really hit the ground running, and she really created the best product under the circumstances. So I really do appreciate the work staff has put into this. Please.
I was just curious as to how many new positions have been created within City Hall in the last year?
In the last year, new positions created at City Hall.
Either new positions or gone from part-time to full-time?
I don't have those
You don't know?
particular figures right off the top of my head. We can always have somebody get back to you, though, with the answers.
That would be fine, thank
Sure.
you.
Anybody else before we close the hearing? We will leave the record open for 10 days, but we'll hereby close the budget hearing for this year for the FY 2016-17 budget. Next item is the introduction of an ordinance, the tax rates beginning July 1, 2016.
Mayor, I move for introduction of an ordinance, May 10th, 2016, to establish the city's tax rates for the fiscal year July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, on the basis of .913 per $100 of assessed value of all real property and 2.283 per $100 of assessed value of all business personal property within the city of Hagerstown. These rates reflect no change from the current year rates per $100 of assessed value for real property and business personal property.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rubaker, second by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to follow with your comments about staff, and I would like to commend both our city administrator and all our finance people for what's happened this year. I obviously been on the council for a long time. I came on the council a little after, but I believe the same year as Bruce Zimmerman did. So for all the years I've been here, the budget process has proceeded in the same way, which is entirely different than it happened this year. And as a council member, I certainly appreciate the way it happened this year. And the distinction for folks is very simple. All prior years, we were presented with an unbalanced budget. meaning calling for a certain, maybe for instance, a 5 to 6 cent tax increase, knowing that we were never going to have a tax increase, but the city administrator said, well, here you go, here's the budget that, you know, fits, and I know you want to cut $1 million out of it, so start telling me where you want to cut. And it was always a very prolonged, difficult method, and we had a number of council members, Councilmember Brubaker and Alshire, who would line by line that budget and really prose at it, and we would spend literally months whittling that down and cutting this and cutting that till we got down to a budget that either did not involve a tax increase or involved the type of tax increase that the current council found acceptable. The method that you all have decided to do is very different. It is to have staff, to have the elected body say to staff, this year, the example, there will be no tax rate increase, and you have to present to us a budget. And instead of presenting us a budget with that increase and asking us to whittle it down, you have presented one that we did not have to make any changes to at all. And I can tell you, from my own perspective, that's a very appreciated method, and I do appreciate it. I would much rather be in a position to tell you, I look at it and I want you to add things and we're willing to eat the tax increase versus otherwise. And thank you very much, both of you, for that.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. We do have two council members absent who, one is ill and the other one has a scheduled meeting. So I did hear from them, and I've heard no opposition from either one of them, but they will have their chance to speak on the budget and tax rate at a future meeting as well. The next item of business is the introduction of the ordinance for the budget for fiscal year 2016-17.
Mayor, I hereby move for introduction of an ordinance, May 10th, 2016, to adopt the city's budget for fiscal year July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, in the total amount of $128,680,469.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Brubaker, seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion?
Yes, I want to make it clear that that amount includes all the enterprise funds, water, sewer, and other special funds that are not tax supported. The general fund is just over 40 million of that amount. The second thing I wanted to say is that while the city manager did a good job presenting us with the budget with no tax increase, she doesn't have a magic wand, and it will be very difficult next year to achieve the same thing, depending on the results of that assessment cycle, whether Hagerstown property values have turned around enough to start to bring us to back to approaching the levels we had in 2008. So that will be difficult. We also have 4 labor contracts that expire this summer. And you know, that's a major challenge to do that and then bring those in within the available revenues. So it's going to be a tough road to hoe. There's other issues as well, but those are 2 of the big ones in the upcoming year.
Thank you, Councilmember Brubaker. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The introduction is approved, and I was incorrect. The scheduling of the approval of these ordinances will be at a special session next Tuesday on May 17th. So the approval is open for that. We will have a period of citizen comments at that meeting. Any other, let's see, city administrator comments at this time?
Nothing additional this evening. Again, thank you, council, for passing the tax rate and the budget for us so that we can start. And I appreciate your comments, and staff and the department heads worked very hard, many meetings and a lot of going back to the drawing board and coming back with ideas. But to Councilman Brubaker's point, we do have some work ahead of us in future fiscal years, and I look forward to working on that for you. That's all.
All right. Council comments, I'll start here on my right. Councilmember Brubaker.
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Metzner.
I just want to thank the folks that came out tonight. and including the one that was about 10 years behind me at North High. It's nice to have citizens who are truly interested in city government and what's going on and want to do more than just complain and not hear what's happening. Complaints are always fine as long as we all know what's going on together, and I just want to thank everybody for coming out.
Councilmember Munson?
I have a couple of things I'd like to go over. First,
Sure.
I'd like to echo what Councilman Metzner just said. Sometimes we have a much larger agenda and don't have that many people come for the agenda, so thank you all. I would also, in spite of the fact that they're not here, I would also like to congratulate each and all, and I know I'm speaking for the entire council on this, all the citizens from the Police Academy graduation program tonight. This is a program that takes time and effort and energy, and that was a big class of people who were willing to give that to the city of Hagerstown. Secondly, I would like to say thank you to whoever did it, I'm sure under the direction of our city administrators, cleaning up the parking lot downtown by the Elizabeth Hager Center. I noticed that the weeds were cut. The place was, I saw some people actually sweeping up down there. And so some of the dirt was, if not all of the dirt, was cleaned up. And the areas were filled in with some kind of fill to make it a much more attractive parking area. So thank you for taking care of that. And lastly, Dot McDonald is here. She's a candidate for city council, and she pointed out something that needs to be mentioned. There's an area across from North Hagerstown High School. I went past it today, and probably some other people sitting in this room went past it today. The weeds are at least 2 feet high. And everybody sitting up here has in the past expressed a concern about this for several years, about cutting the weeds there. Now, apparently the homeowners association does not work in connection with those weeds that need to be cut. And the city finds itself frequently in a position where it has to take care of that and then take care of the financial obligations that other people owe for it. So I'm asking if you could get our enforcement people out there.
Councilman, we are very much aware of it. We actually have the city attorney who's trying to assist us, the city, in trying to find out, somebody has to have ownership of that property. We understand that the homeowners association either never formed or fell apart. So there's common ground areas that are not being taken care of. And frequently we do that because obviously we can't just let the weeds grow, and Eric Dykey is very aware of it, and I'm sure it's already on the list to be cut. But it's difficult for the city to continue to do that because that's really not our responsibility, and it's hard to do that and then try to go after funding for reimbursement. So Mr. Boyer is working on that, and I hope that we can really rectify the situation this year because it is very difficult, and it's not just that side. That's the most noticeable side. But there's actually a stormwater management pond inside the neighborhood that also causes problems as well.
Okay, thank you for your response, but
Sure.
in the meantime, it really does need to be cut
Yes.
by someone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to mention that we do have the permits from MDE in our hands. I saw them in our utility director's hands at the beginning of the meeting, so work will begin in earnest and in haste at the MELP, well, hasty but safely, at the MELP site, and a lot of action should be seen there in the next week or two, and finally bringing that building down and rectifying that long-standing blight. I also wanted to give a shout out to the organizers of the Boonesboro Green Fest. I happened to go for their opening ceremony this past Saturday, where the city was recognized as the second municipality in Washington County behind Boonesboro to become Sustainable Maryland certified, which is a really proud accomplishment of this administration, and I hope that we continue to invest in things like green infrastructure and our bicycle lanes, and you know, if it were not for the city's curbside recycling, the Washington County would not enjoy one of the highest recycling rates in all of the state of Maryland. So hopefully we can continue on that record. Also, I want to give a shout out to the Washington County Senior Softball League. I threw a very terrible first pitch at their game last night. I think it's easier to throw a first pitch at a Hagerstown Suns game than it is to throw a slow pitch underhand softball. But it was great to see seniors, which are considered to be men 50 years of age or older. So I still have 12 years to get my pitching skills down. And they also have a few women who have, I guess, are 40 and over who play with them. So it's good to see folks being healthy and engaging in active lifestyles, even as seniors in our community. They celebrating their 25th anniversary in existence and their 20th year playing at City Park. So wanted to congratulate them, and they have some great sponsors who sponsor their teams. I also want to say that today I got to attend the We the People civics competition over at Hagerstown Community College with 3 middle schools here in Washington County, E. Russell Hicks being one of them, Springfield Middle, Boonesboro Middle. They also had a high school competition, and this was the second time in the few years I've been here in this position I've done that, and it's really enlightening and encouraging to see young people who have an interest in civics and learning about government. And it was an honor and a privilege to be a part of that event and judging the teams. Very hard to say which team was the best because they were all so good. And I also wanted to recognize that we had a winner in the If I Were Mayor essay contest from Hagerstown. The Maryland Municipal League every year puts on a contest for 4th graders, an essay contest called If I Were Mayor. This year they had a challenge to, they were the mayor of Happytown, and they were supposed to find a way for Happytown to become a healthier community, and so the idea was to generate ideas for how to do that. And the winner in our district in the state of Maryland was Cameron Rith, who is Mrs. Haupt's student at Eastern Elementary School. And all of the district winners will be gathering in Annapolis at the governor's reception room this Thursday. And in my stead, Councilmember Brubaker is going to be meeting at that reception with all the students who are gathering there for that honor. It's one of the great things, being the mayor, that I can delegate. Not only we can share the heat, but we also get to share the fun. So I'm glad that Councilmember Brubaker is willing to do that, to travel down to Annapolis to be a part of that ceremony for me. And congratulations to Cameron. And if there is nothing else, then we will be adjourned. Thank you so much.